Right, question 20 on the higher paper. This is video 184. It's using upper and lower bounds. This quite a tricky question. This is a lot to process here. So Paula is making biscuits for the charity fundraiser. She makes biscuits in batches of 12. Paula's weighing scales are correct to the nearest gram, and she needs to weigh 8 grams to make one batch of 12. Okay. She has 220 grams of baking powder, correct to the nearest 10 grams, and plenty of everything else. She plans to sell her biscuits at £2 for a pack of 3. What's the most amount of money? Well, if she wants to make the most money, she's going to have to make the most number of biscuits, isn't she? So looking back through this, we want to make the most number of batches. Now, if we want to make the most number of batches, it means that we want to use as little baking powder for each batch as possible, so that we've got as much as, so that we can make as many batches. Just say that again, because that's really important. If we want to make the most number of batches, we want to use as few grams as possible. So it means that this 8 grams here, because it's correct to the nearest gram, we're actually going to do 7.5. Because if we are dividing these into batches and each batch has to use 8 grams, we would make more batches by making each batch use 7.5 grams. Okay. She has 220 grams of baking powder, correct to the nearest 10 grams. Well, that's the total amount of baking powder that we're going to use. So if it's correct to the nearest 10 grams, we want to make that as big as possible to be able to split, to be able to make more batches, because that's the amount of stuff that we're going to share out. So to be able to share that into the most number of batches, we want to make that as big as possible, which is going to be, if it's correct to the nearest 10 grams, that's going to be 225 grams. We're going to assume that she could have 225. Okay. Notice all of this is kind of based on that word there. What is the greatest amount of money that Paula could raise for her charity? Well, we're told that she's got this amount of baking powder, correct to the nearest 10 grams, so she might have 225 grams. Okay. So to figure out how many batches we're going to make then, she's got 225 grams of baking powder. We're saying that each batch of 12 biscuits will use up 7.5 grams. So we need to figure out how we are going to do that. Okay. Now, it's a nasty sum, that, isn't it? There's a couple of different ways you can do it. You could turn this into 2250 divided by 75 if you wanted to. You could count up in 7.5s. If you do 7.5 times 2, that gives you 15. And then to get from 15 to 225, times it by another 15. Okay? Which means that altogether there, hopefully you can see you're dividing by 30. If you were going to do it this way, you'd have to use your bus stop method. Okay, but to get from 7.5 to 225, we'd have to times by 2 and then times by 15, which is, easy to spot, hopefully. But that means that you'd be timesing by 30. But you can do it that way if you want to, which is going to be a bit of a nasty division. So it means that we can make 30 batches. Well, we were told up here that there were 12 biscuits in each batch. So that's 360 biscuits. We are going to group them into packs of 3 to sell them. So we're going to divide that by 3, which means 120 packs. And then we're going to sell them for £2 each, which means she could make 240 quid at most. Okay. Just go through these kind of steps again. You're dividing that to see how many batches she can make. That's batches. So that's how many biscuits in total. So dividing it by 3 tells you it's 120 packs. Times that by £2 means you'll make £240 altogether. Okay. Let's have a little look through the mark scheme for that. It is a 6-mark question. There's an awful lot going on. Right. B1. The use of 225 and 7.5. That is hard, I think, because it's difficult to know whether to use the upper or lower bound. Obviously, whenever you see things like that, correct to the nearest gram, whatever you've got near in that kind of little paragraph, to do with grams, you should then be saying, well, it's going to be either 7.5 or 8.5 because that's the range with which it would be correct to the nearest gram. Same with this one, correct to the nearest 10 grams, that would be 215 or 225. I think if you were to do that, obviously they can then see that you've got that written down, at least got them written down, so you probably get that mark there. Method mark 1 is for then knowing to divide this to get the most number of batches out of it. Okay, so remember when you're dividing, it means you do the upper bound divided by a lower bound to get the highest thing out. You've then got a method mark for any non-calculator method for this scene. So if you were to write that down, you'd get a mark for that. Okay, I think that could stump quite a lot of people there getting to the 30 batches. That's quite tough, and that's why they give you an accuracy mark for that. But notice you've got a method mark there that says follow through there 30. So if you were stuck on doing this thing, just guess, give yourself an easy number, because then you can still work out an answer from that by doing this, you know, 30 times by 12, the number of biscuits divided by 3, which is sort of written down there, and then times by 2. That's a method mark, knowing to do those steps, and then getting your accuracy mark at the end for 240. If anyone gets that all right, well done, because that's tough. It's a difficult question, that one.